Greetings in the name of Jesus Christ. I'm Pastor Wade Martin Hughes, soon to be 35 years here at Faith Assembly of God, Smith Grove. We are Faith Assembly of God, Smith Grove, Kentucky, uh, P.O. Box 331, Smith Grove, Kentucky 42171. And we're here today for several reasons. We will not be doing the guitar today, and we just covet your prayers in those areas. And we ask that on the other side of the camera is Mr. Larry Carter, and he runs the soundboard. He does everything but speaking. He could probably speak a lot better than I can. But we have some thoughts that we do want to share with you today, and we want to talk about uh, what's your potential. Could you do a little more? Uh, the potential. What's the potential of my hammer? Of course, this hammer probably wouldn't have a lot of potential in that it's small, but this potential could do. We was building a little building to park our lawnmower in back when we had a lawnmower here at church, and I felt bad just standing there watching. And the guy, I said something. He gave me a hammer, a fancy hammer, and he gave me three nails and said, "You can drive these nails." First nail, my potential showed itself, and that I smashed my finger driving the nail in, and blood gushed out all over the place. So the potential of the hammer is not much in my hand, but it is if you put it in the right hand and you combine it with other tools. Uh, this is a tool that they use. Uh, they float the bubble in there, and it tells if it's level. They got a bubble going this way. But to do a job, the potential, you're going to need more than a level and a hammer. You probably are going to need some means of measuring. Uh, Everything's not the same use, and you're going to need some things that we just take for granted. Uh, I have a carpenter's pencil. Uh, they're square, and I'm not for sure. You know why they're square, Larry? Uh,
Well, it's just to make sure it don't move when you're sliding down the edge of the straight
Sounds good to me. You can tell I never used one, but I bought me some carpenter's pencils. I haven't sharpened it, but to do a work, the potential, you have to have the right tools, and of course, you have to have the right nails, and we have to drop it. But I don't need it anymore. We're going to be probably looking at these nails. They're much different than a traditional nail. These, last time I used them, I got a horseshoe nails, and they had a razor blade sharp point on them. So this time I got concrete nails that doesn't have a point on them. But not only do we have the potential to do something great with this, but we have to have somebody with the effort to apply. And let me start off by telling you a story. again, the potential of these tools is great, and what one more lick could do, uh, wow. The story goes something like this. There was a beautiful lady, smart, graduated from college, and she got a job in a textile mill, a cotton mill, and they trained her. She had a wonderful boss that was very understanding. She was quick learning and all of that. But he explained to her about the machine. If it gets tangled up, if the cotton fibers get all tangled up, don't try to fix it. Call me. And he said, whatever you do, don't try to fix it. Just call me and I'll come and fix it. Well, on her third day, as she was working on the machine, her cotton got all tangled up in a ball. And she worked 2 hours trying to untangle the cotton fiber. And the more she worked on it, the worse it got. Finally, after 2 hours, she called her boss over and said, boss, I did the best I could. I did the best I could. I tried my best to get it untangled. And the boss said, ma'am, you didn't do the best you could. If you had done the best that you could, you would have done what I told you to do and called me over, and I could have fixed the problem. I could have fixed this mess in less than 2 minutes. And now we have more than 2 hours wasted in it. And he said, no, ma'am, you didn't do the best you could. You could have done what you was told to do, and I could have fixed it in just minutes. And I think that's the way the story of our life is. Oftentimes things get in a mess, and we try and try and try and try and try and try until we get to this point that we realize, God, you can help me in this. I had a 79 green Ford van, and the starter went out on it, and I didn't have money to get it fixed, and I didn't know what a starter was or where a starter was on the engine. And so we went to the parts store. My older son was probably 8, 9 maybe. Uh, and we opened the box when we got home and we took the starter out. And I said to him, son, we need to get under the van and we need to find something that looks like this. And then we'll know that that's what we've got to replace. So we looked under it, didn't find it. We come back out and prayed, God, we can't afford to get this fixed. We can't afford the labor. Lord, help us. And in 5 seconds, my son crawled under the van and said, right there it is, Dad, right there it is. So we started loosening the bolts or screws or whatever you call them. We started unloosening them, and I learned a lesson that probably Larry's learned too. You take off the positive post of the battery before you change the starter. Sparks went all over the place. We come out, we disconnected the battery, we went back under it, and we changed the starter. And for the lifetime of that vehicle, we never had another problem with it. Uh, Sometimes we just have to seek wisdom beyond our ability. And there's no shame of asking for help or seeking that. After we replaced the starter, I guess 5 or 6 men from the church come up and said, "We would have done that. We would have done that." Well, several knew that the starter was out, but God helped us to do it. And I want to tell you uh, a little bit about love. First off, let me tell you, love is one of the hardest words to define. I look love up in Webster's dictionary and it says a strong emotion. Well, that really doesn't define what love is. Uh, it's a strong emotion. That doesn't tell me what love is. Can you see love? I've asked that to several young people, and they say, "Yeah, you can see love." Well, what's it look like? You can't see love. You might see the effects of love: holding hands, a kiss, a hug, a kindness. Uh, but I will tell you this: the greatest love known to all mankind is found in John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his life for his friends. The Message says it this way: this is the very best way to love. Put your life on the line for your friends. Okay? We're talking about potential and growth and doing more. Something happens when people get stagnant in their marriage, at their church. We just stay the same. We don't grow, we don't develop, we don't apply ourselves. I've said many times the average person that graduates high school will never read another book. I was asked the other day, what book makes you sad, makes you cry? I said, that's easy. The algebra book made me cry a whole lot. I had trouble getting it. But I want to tell you that we're defining life by yesterday, and that ought not be. The failures of yesterday and where we are, that shouldn't be. There was a song called Tomorrow, and it's a very famous song. And when we did this at church, a lady broke out singing it, and I'm not going to break out singing it. But the song goes something like this: the sun will come out tomorrow. Bet your bottom dollar. And tomorrow there'll be sun. Just thinking about tomorrow clears the cobwebs away. And the sorrow until there's none. It goes on to say, when I'm stuck with a day that's gray and lonely, I just stick out my chin and grin and say, oh, the sun will come out tomorrow. Oh, you've got to hang on until tomorrow, come what may. It goes on to say, tomorrow, tomorrow. I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. The sun will come out tomorrow. So you will have to hang on until tomorrow comes what may. Tomorrow, tomorrow. I love you tomorrow. You're always a day away. The We talk about the potential of these tools, and I love visual things. I just love visual things. But this could sit here until it rust, no potential. This nail could sit till it rust. I believe these are galvanized, uh, and I don't know. But it takes somebody with a plan to take their hammer and start one stroke at a time. That's how you build a house. Of course, nowadays we got nail guns and we got better tools than these. nobody would loan me a nail gun. I'd be dangerous. Somebody told me touching a galvanized nail is not good for you. I don't know. But life is accomplished one stroke at a time, one hit of the hammer. And you know, we're probably thinking about three nails and a hammer and a wooden cross. What was accomplished through that? The enemy laughed and laughed and laughed. I guess we'll need a hammer, we'll need a saw, we'll need chisels, we'll need tape measures, we'll need levels. But all of it has to come together. And if you're not careful, you'll sit on the couch watching television or you'll play on your cell phone and not accomplish anything. Uh, uh, Oftentimes, we find out excuses become hindrances to what God wants us to accomplish. Are we satisfied to do a little, to give a little? Or are we satisfied? Are we satisfied to just sit on the couch potatoes or whatever? Luke 14:16, out of the New Living Translation too. Jesus replied with this story. A man prepared a great feast and sent out many invitations. The potential. The potential. He sent out many invitations. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants out to tell the guests, come, the banquet is ready. But they all began, sad, sad story. They all began making excuses. I've been praying and asking God to help God's people to quit this offering excuses. We throw temper tantrums and slam doors and scream and I've said a million times, anger is no more than manipulation. It's trying to control the events. They had the potential of being with the master. Jesus says, I've invited you to come closer, but you're just going to stay where you're at. And they they began making excuses, verse 18. One said, I just bought a field and I must inspect it. Please excuse me. Now that sounds like a really good excuse, but that man is an absolute fool if he bought land without first going to look at it. I've got some coastline land in Arizona that I could sell you at a very reasonable price. I want you to know that we come to this point instead of reaching our potential. What potential did Peter have? What potential did Saul have? I'm talking about the Saul in the New Testament that become a great man of God. The line that the preacher told him when he went to visit him, he said, I'm going to show you what great things you're going to suffer. No, no, that's not in my criteria for potential that I'm going to suffer. And here we are staying the same. Tomorrow could be different than today if you would just plan it. Judas had potential just like Peter did, just like Andrew did. Andrew wasn't a big name, but Andrew was, we call him the bringer. There's no book of Andrew. There's no great thing that he did, but people would come to Andrew and say, we want to see Jesus. And Andrew would take them. But let's consider the Judas experience. Could you be a Judas? Could Could you do or could you sell out for some cheap nominal fee? What kind of love do I have? What kind of love did Judas have? Judas was not willing to lay down his life. He just wasn't willing to do it. And it says that about Judas, it's so sad. See, what I'd like to get is tomorrow could be different than today if we would just love. A lot of us love easy to love people. There's easy to love people. Larry on the other side of the camera, his wife Dee, they're easy to love people. Uh, that they'll help you, they'll whatever. But there's so many people satisfied to sit back and say, what's the cheapest price that an experience with God has been sold? Uh, Esau sold an experience for a bowl of soup. Yep, that's a pretty cheap price. We we could we could study all kinds of people, but let me tell you this: the cheapest price I could find in the Bible is both mentioned in the Old Testament and it's mentioned in the New Testament. Lot's wife. Lot's wife. We don't know her name, but she did sell out for a look back. Somebody said, "You mean?" Yeah, I mean, she never reached her potential. She never took the tools that God put in her hand and I say it's not her looking back. I say it's what was in her heart that made her want to look back. That's what got her in trouble, and she become a pillar of salt. Do I believe that? Yes, I do. But let me tell you something. Judas sat at the table and partook of the Last Supper with Jesus. The one that sopped his bread. Wow. He was there. He had this potential that he could be greater, that he could do greater, but no, 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 no. He was there with the 12 disciples. At some point, Jesus gets some water and starts to wash their feet. I want to tell you something. I don't understand the kind of love that Jesus loved Judas, that he washed his feet. And Jesus knew what was coming up. Jesus knew that Judas was going to make this terrible decision. Jesus knew that Judas was a traitor. It was probably easy to love Andrew and Peter and John. It was probably easy. John laid his head on Jesus' chest. That was probably easy to do. But real love will lay your head on the chest of the one that's going to sell you for 30 pieces of silver. Jesus used this lesson to teach us about forgiveness, to teach us about forgiveness. One lick at a time, one lick at a time. And here we find ourselves that Jesus served Judas. He placed the bread and the wine to Judas's lips. What kind of love would love a pretender? Are we just going to act or is it going to be real? John 13, verse 7. John 13, verse 7. The lesson of love is more than loving the 11 people that love you. It's loving Judas. Jesus knelt at all 12 feet. Jesus knew Peter was going to deny him. John 13, verse 7. Jesus answered and said unto him, What I do thou knowest not now, but you shall know hereafter. Jesus says, you're not going to understand this washing of the feet right now. You're not going to understand. You're not going to understand, John, the fullness of what I'm doing. But John, you will understand a little bit later because you'll see that I love Judas as well as you. Only one person in the history of the Bible is recorded of laying their head on Jesus' chest, and that's John. John heard the divine heartbeat. Can you hear the divine heartbeat? Can you? What a lesson this is. Peter said, I'm not going to allow you to wash my feet. Jesus explained to him, and Peter said, Hey, Jesus, not only wash my feet, wash my head, just wash me all over. But buried in this lesson, we find out what kind of love we must have. We must love the people that betray us. Wait a minute. Judas, did you not see the blind people's sight return? Did you not see the dead girl raised to life? Did you not see the lady that had the issue of blood for 12 years? Didn't you see all of this? See, seeing all of this is not enough. We've got to be partakers of this. That's what love's all about. And I want to tell you, today can change tomorrow. Oh, man. Jesus, help us. The sun's going to come out tomorrow. You can bet your dollar that the mistakes of today don't have to define you, that they don't have to. Tomorrow, the sun can wash the cobwebs away, the sorrow until they're gone. Tomorrow. Let me tell you, Friday looked to be an awful, terrible, terrible day. You hear me? It's a terrible day. But what a couple of days, what a few hours can change. Satan and all the demons from history are laughing. We have the Son of God in a dark tomb. But in divine timing, that stone was rolled away and Jesus came out. And let me tell you about how stupid worry is. The ladies had trouble going to sleep that night, I'm sure. They knew they had to go back and finish the preparation of Jesus' body. Their dreams were dashed. They thought Jesus was going to be the answer. And here he is in the grave. And I'd say during the night, one of them woke up, Mary maybe, and said, Who's going to roll the stone away? Who's going to roll the stone away? You don't have to worry about who's going to roll the stone away. My God has a plan and a purpose for you. And who knows but what the next lick of the hammer, the next stroke of the hammer might bring about a miracle. Just because today has been hurt, pain, and you're feeling bad, tomorrow might be different. Tomorrow might be different. Did you know that it's amazing to me how one day can change things? There was a preacher that was disobedient riding around in the belly of a fish. My my theory is Jonah never ate at Long John Silver's or Captain D's ever again the rest of his life. I doubt he ever ordered a fish sandwich from McDonald's. It looked awful dark riding in there, and I don't know. Some people think that there was light inside the belly of that great fish. I don't know. I don't know. But I do know on the third day, for some reason, that great fish swam ashore and puked the preacher out. And you talk about a revival. A revival is going to come to a whole nation changed in one day. The judgment was coming down. They had 40 days and Nineveh would be destroyed. But the 41st day came around. They repented. They had revival. We always want to talk about the 40 days of defeat, 40 days, and they come back and tell, we can't do it, we can't do it. Two people stand up and say, absolutely. Who knows but what one more stroke of the hammer? Who knows what tomorrow might hold? We can go right now, the one preacher said, and all the rest said, no, 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 we can't. But I want to tell you, 40 years they wandered around in the desert. But I want to tell you, day comes when Joshua leads the people across the Jordan River. And what looked hopeless for 40 years all changes in divine timing. If you'll hang on, my friend, you'll be surprised. 40 appears at least 157 times in the Bible. 40 is associated with change. We've been in this trap, and 41 is coming. The human gestation period, pregnancy, is give or take around 40 weeks for the life. Lent is 40 days. 40 days, 40 lashes with the cat of nine tails. Either had bones or pieces of iron in it. 39 lashes less one. But there come a time that was the last whip that you're going to get. They'll never whip Jesus again. One more stroke. I want to tell you something. He might have rode into town on a borrowed donkey. Was that last week? But I want to tell you, he's not coming back on a borrowed donkey. He's coming back on a white horse. See, all of those issues change if we keep the right attitude, if we keep plugging away, if we keep trying. Did you know Saul, the first king of Israel, David, the second king of Israel, and Solomon, the third king of Israel, did you know they all reigned 40 years? Did you know that it rained 40 days and 40 nights? But it quit raining on the 41st day. Did you know that the ark rests on top of the mountains? And on the 40th day, a raven was released. You hear what I'm saying? Dark may be the night, but great is the light. And I know some of you have been in your 40 days. It's been crushing. You thought about quitting. You have quit. You thought about, I'm just going to go ahead and die. I'm so sick. I'm just going to go ahead and die. God's got a new day ahead for you. Don't give up on the brink of your miracle. 40 days of rain. Wow. But the day is going to come when the sun comes out again. The ark is going to be parked and all the animals are going to be released. I don't know why they released those two mosquitoes. I don't know. Talk about 40 and change. God, you've been pushed to your limits. This test has been a terrible storm. I think I said last night, I think I started the lesson last night with this story about the butterfly. Did you know butterflies don't fly in the rain? Their wings are so fragile. And what's the word, Larry? Fragile, weak. So they're so delicate that rain will destroy their wings. They find a safe place from the storm and they pull in their wings and they ride out the storm. It seems like you've been in this storm forever. Seems like there's been no progress. Seems like you're not going to make it. Seems like some of your family members think you're not going to make it. Maybe some people at church think you're not going to make it. I'm going to tell you, if you'll hang on, a new day is coming. Tomorrow is coming. And tomorrow can change the history of your heritage, of your whole family. A guy can be a drunk all of his life and one day lay that beer down and never pick it up again. Yeah. That lady that's lived a shady life, that family that's all broken and torn up, getting in church and repenting and changing. You don't have to stay the same way you are. And the change doesn't have to come tomorrow. The change could come today. Moses' life was based on 40s. He spent his first 40 years living in the palace. First, till he was weaned, he lived with his mom and dad, and they taught him about God and stuff, but the palace couldn't take that out of him. But there had to be a change. God can't use Moses in the comfort of the palace of Egypt. And how's it going to change? Through a negative storm. Do you think Moses went to the desert because he wanted to? No. He killed a man. He thought he got away with it till tomorrow. And the guy says, yeah, I saw you bury that Egyptian in the sand. So the first 40 years is over. He leaves the comfort of the palace. It's over. It's over. It's over. No, it's not. It's not over. Moses travels into the second 40 years of his life. In the palace, Moses thought he was hot stuff. I'm a big shot. I've got the best horse. I've got the fastest chariot. I've got it all. In the desert for 40 years, Moses is going to learn he's nothing. He's nothing. To change from the palace to the desert, his wife would pack his lunch. But one day at 40 years, he took his brown bag lunch and was out with the animals. And he looks over and sees a burning bush. And in that burning bush, God speaks to him, I am. Not you are. Not am I. I am, God says. Not to worry, those 40 years will pass when he feels like a nobody shape is scratching that sheep dung off of his feet before his wife lets him come into the house. A change is coming. The change comes that he's learned from the palace and that he's learned from the desert. He learned to take up for the underdogs in the desert. Remember that story? He learns God is everything in his last 40 years. I believe God's trying to teach you today that whatever the failures and whatever the heartaches and whatever it is, if you'll keep on, who knows, this lick might be the burning bush. He'd never seen anything like that before. He'd seen bushes burn, but this bush was not consumed. It was God. God wants to speak to you today. I don't know that it'll be in the burning bush. I don't know. But you need to keep chugging away at whatever it is. 40 days, they spy out the land. 40 years. But as I told you a minute ago, Moses is gone. God speaks to Joshua and say, your tomorrow's come. I want you to cross the Jordan. Hey, God, don't you know the Jordan's flooded this time of year? God said, I don't care. I'll take you through. I'll take you through this. And in the 41st year, 1,000,000 people cross into the promise. The promise is for you today. Moses fasted 40 days to receive the law. He's the only guy recorded in the Bible that broke all 10 commandments one time. Wow. Moses was up on the mountain 40 days. But on the 41st day, he comes down the mountain with the 10 commandments. He was up on the mountain. Now he's coming down. The manna means what meaneth this, was a white colander-like seed that it could be fried, it could be baked, it could be boiled, or it could be eaten raw. But in one day, the manna stopped. In one day. Because God had a plan that they could make it on their own and they didn't need the manna. Maybe today, what seems to be divine provisions have been dried up. That's okay. It's okay. God has a plan. God has a plan. God's plan, the Bible, is written by 40 different people. 32 in the Old Testament and 8 in the New Testament. If Bernie Sanders gets his way, we're going to go to a 32-hour work week and get paid the same as 40 hours. I don't know how all these companies. I saw yesterday a man in a different state went to McDonald's and ordered a Big Mac, fries, and a drink, and it cost him $16. I don't know what's going to happen, but I will tell you something I know. God is going to take care of his people tomorrow. I believe we should be prepared. I believe that. But this fear that preachers and prophets and apostles are putting in people. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it. Do you think you can store up enough food, enough of your medicine, enough water to last you? An old man that I knew years ago that I pastored, his name was Watt Hale. He quoted this verse all the time. I once was young, but now I'm old. I haven't seen the righteous forsaken or his seed begging bread. Somebody said, you don't know what's going on in Haiti. Listen, I know what's going on in Haiti. I've been there. I've been there. I want to tell you something. They're not Christian. They're voodoo. God takes care of his people. And You may be in your 39th year or your 40th year, but I'm telling you, deliverance is coming if you'll keep if you'll keep plugging away at it. I don't know what the world's going to hold. I have no idea. I do have ideas from Matthew 21, from Luke, from Second Timothy. I I see what's coming on. I see the great falling away. And some of you watching this right now are part of the great falling away of the church. You think you can have your church at home and it be just as good as a fellowship at church. Besides that, at your house, there's not any hypocrites. At the church, there are hypocrites. Might I suggest you might have a hypocrite living in your house? I don't know. Did you know Goliath for 40 days, twice a day, 80 negative messages? But I want to tell you, tomorrow's coming. That little boy comes into camp with bread and with cheese and pulling it and gives it to the generals and takes it to his brothers. And little do they know, tomorrow, victory's coming. A little boy and 5 smooth stones. I don't know why I didn't get razor blade sharp stones. I don't know. One little sling, one little sling, one little sling, 5 stones. There was not a 41st day of messages from Goliath. He says, what, am I a dog that they're sending this little kid out? No, no. God has heard what you said, and the judgment is coming on you. And David had a guided missile. I don't know if it's a 357 or a 38 or a 20. I don't know what it was, but I know that you can't go wrong. Victory is coming ahead. Jonah preached 40 days after he rode around 3 days in the fish. That ought to make us quit offering excuses. On the 41st day, Nineveh had the mercy of God extended to him, and the plan of judgment was stopped. Did you know Jesus fasted 40 days before he started his public ministry? Did you know Jesus was tempted 40 days? But on the 41st day, an angel came and ministered to him. Deliverance is coming. Jesus ascended into heaven on the 40th day. Wow. I believe that some of you are at the point that you're either going to give up or you're going to get you're going to get a grip and say, deliverance is coming. Deliverance is coming. You hear me? 40 days between the resurrection and the ascending. Don't quit on day 30. Of course, we're not talking a specific time period. Don't quit on 39. Don't quit on 40. I want to tell you something. My God has a plan. He has a plan. 40 is the number of fulfillment of God's plan, of God's promises. 40's associated with testing. Yeah, you've been tested. The doctor's news has been terrible. Medical reports. You don't need those medical reports. You know you feel really bad. Fighting for every breath. Weak. Seems like I failed. Seems like we're not going to make it. It's all a lie. I want to tell you, when God says that you have enough, He's going to send new life and new growth and new hope. We have a little church a little distance away from, and the name of the church is Little Hope. I want to tell you, I've got great hope. Jesus is in control. I don't know about 666 and the chips, and I don't know about saving your food and canning your food and killing the squirrels. I don't know. I don't know. But I know this, that God knows how to deliver his people. And God knows how to deliver you from this terrible storm that you're in. It's okay to rest if you must. Butterfly, land in a safe place. Protect your wings because the sun's coming out tomorrow. And I'd like to bring hope to the hopeless. I'd like to bring help to the helpless. I'd like to tell you that my God has a plan for you. And the plan is not that he brought us this far to let us down. God has a plan. Deliverance is coming. We asked a couple of things. We asked that you would pray for us. Pray for Larry and his wife, Dee. There's so many prayer needs around. This morning, when I got up, I didn't know if I could go. I felt so bad. I haven't counted, but I could look. I'd say I prayed for over 400 people today because I believe God hears our prayers. All you got to do is send us a prayer request, and we'll pray for it. If there's any way possible, you know somebody that's going through something absolutely terrible, could you send this on to them? Could you deliver hope to them? Could you, through the foolishness of preaching, how would you like to have a job that God called foolish? Through the foolishness of preaching, I want to tell you, my friend, I want to tell you, maybe today, maybe tomorrow. I can't tell you when, but if we'll take the tools that God has put in our hands, I'll tell you that you can have new hope and new power. Mine and Larry's greatest concern, we went to the funeral last week. Seems like friends are dying right and left. A great preacher, last name is Mead, did a lot of work in India, passed away. The torch is being laid down. The torch is being laid down. My days are numbered. Somebody said you're talking negative. I'm not. The Bible says, Lord, teach me to number my days. Your days are numbered, and you're going to face God, and you're going to face the Bema seat. You're going to be judged. If you don't know Jesus Christ as your personal Savior, or if you're backslidden, if you're cold, if you're indifferent, I want to tell you something. I know in whom I believe. And I am absolutely persuaded that he's able to keep what we commit to him against that day. And though as I pick up my hammer, and though I measure things off, I count the cost, though I do all of these things, there will come a day when the last nail will be driven. And Jesus is going to come for his church. Will it be today? I don't know. Will it be tomorrow? I don't know. But I do know this. He's coming. He's coming again. Are you ready? Are you one of those offering excuses? Are you one of those that's stagnant and you haven't done anything? You haven't changed? Your family gets worse and worse and worse. Today is the day that we dream about what God's going to do tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Larry Carter, on the other side of the camera. And we're in the war room. We explained last week this is a picture my dad drew, painted in a 2004. It'd be 20 years old. And my dad speaking to you from the grave. Let's close out right over here, Mr. Carter. Your time is almost gone. You say, I'm 35. You say, I'm 20. I don't care. We don't have much time. But above the time running out is the Father with the book of life. And I want you to be ready. What would a man give in exchange for a soul? You would give everything you own for another day. You're headed towards eternity. Thank you for watching. Thank you, Mr. Larry Carter. And we ask that you would consider that you can change if you want to. The trouble is, do you want to? We are Faith Assembly of God, P.O. Box 331, Smiths Grove, Kentucky, 42171, or we are reachable via the computer at KYFINGERS@AOL.com. That's Kentucky Fingers at AOL.com. Thank you for watching this, and a double thank you, and may the Lord bless you double if you can pass this on to other people. Remember, it looks dark today. It may be Friday, but Sunday's coming. Jesus is alive and well. Thank you for watching.